Lyon is the host now.
Got it.
It looked like I hit a skunk with a lawnmower out back.
Yeah, that's what I read.
A lot of black hair and a lot of silver hair.
Yeah.
But the records show that we are isolated in our home, and it's been about almost 4 months since I've been able to have a haircut. So I'm doing the best I can under the circumstances.
Well, Mom, it's a beautiful blonde. Both you and Dad look great like blondes,
blonde.
like Matthew's son, James, too.
Yes.
Thank you.
And look I'm starting to turn blonde, too.
Yes, you're looking very distinguished.
Until he
All right,
starts talking.
Matt, you want to kick this off?
Yeah. So, all right. So where we last left off,
I don't know.
we were learning about Grandpa being a young James Dean type, popping wheelies in his car on the sidewalk, impressing all the young ladies. Him and Grandma eventually getting married and basically getting right to it. So,
Did Grandpa talk about flipping his car?
flipping it? I'm not sure.
No, we didn't talk about that.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
So I'm just gonna say like the general guideline, but we can kind of talk about whatever we want. But I was just kind of thinking, so you can talk about finding out what it was like to have being pregnant, and then having my dad, and then just kind of what it was like raising him for the first part, and then at that point, I mean, I'm sure my dad will be interjecting throughout all this anyways, but at a certain point, we'll kind of shift to maybe his like up to high school-ish memories, and then high school-ish, college-ish memories, and then kind of like afterwards there. So I guess I will give it to you, Grandma and Grandpa, and you can talk about maybe what inspired you to have kids, if that was really a deep thought process, and take it from there.
Go for it, Carrie.
I didn't inspire myself. I didn't have any responsibility there.
So
It was all my fault. I just decided to make the egg and the sperm swim together.
Yeah.
Well, we got married in June, and June 21st, the longest day of the year. And about July 1st, we were living in an apartment in Grand Rapids while I was finishing what was called an internship in nursing. And Dad got a letter, and he said, "Oh, good." He said, "I got my fellowship." And I said, "What fellowship?" "Oh," he says, "a fellowship to work on a master's degree at MSU." And I said, "Oh, really?" So we went and we found a trailer in a trailer park in East Lansing, and I got a job working. Actually, I had to work 6 days a week while I was pregnant, and on a Friday when I was about 7.5 months pregnant, my water broke at work, and I went over to the Dad was late picking me up, but we got to the doctor's office, and when we got there, he said, "I'll give you some antibiotics." This would never be done nowadays. "I'll give you some antibiotics, and if you're still home and haven't delivered by Monday, you can go back to work." Okay, fine. And that evening, we went up the freight elevator to deliver it because I didn't want anybody to see me going in there, because I was telling them that I was only 5.5 months pregnant, because they made us quit at 6. And and so we went up there, and I said, "Jim, you should go and tell them, the night crew, that I won't be back on Monday morning." And he went down and he said, "Carrie's not going to be in on Monday morning." "Why is that?" "Well, she's upstairs in labor." And they were all upset because they thought, that I was only maybe 5.5 months pregnant. But as it turned out, we had a lovely, lovely, lovely young man weighing 5 pounds, 8 ounces, and we brought him straight home, 5'12", and we brought him straight home from the hospital.
I think that you were interested if we had planned this, to have start off with children right away.
Yeah.
And the answer was, we plan to take whatever came. And we did this through 5 pregnancies. And then we decided we better find out what makes these kids.
We're finding all these babies.
So we lost one child along the way.
Between Teresa and Mark.
So that's where we are. And what Grandma didn't say is that when she called after her water broke, that I fell asleep on the couch and I wasn't there on time, so she had to wait quite some time before I got there
Parking
in the
lot.
parking lot.
So you knew her water broke and then you were relaxed enough to fall asleep? Oh, no. Okay. I was going to say.
No, but Steve was the sweetest, 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 sweetest baby you would ever, ever, ever want to see or be or meet or anything. But we had him in a 27-foot long, 8-foot wide trailer. So we were the originators of the mini house or whatever you call that.
Yeah. Tiny house. Yeah.
And when I changed his diaper, he hit the ceiling.
Every time.
Every time I take the diaper off and he'd let go and
The
the urine would hit the ceiling and back down.
So you got to throw a washcloth on it every time.
And the next thing, when he was 9.5, 10 months old, he got his first cold. And I was calling the doctor multiple times that evening, and finally he said, you better take him to the hospital. And we brought him to the hospital and they x-rayed him and he had pneumonia, his very first cold. So there he was trying to bat the Hades out of his oxygen tent, because that's what they did with little kids, or big kids too in those days. And they finally had to sedate him in order to get him to calm down and lie down. Yeah. And so there I was working at the hospital, pregnant for Therese, with Steve in the hospital with pneumonia. Then when I delivered Therese, we didn't really have anybody to take care of Steve except his great grandmother. So great grandma came, that's Gom.
Older Gom, yes.
And took care of him while I stayed in the hospital. You know, in those days you stayed 7 days if you wanted to, and I did.
And during that time, we found out where Stephen hid his plastic toys, and that was in the oven under the broiler.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You turn it on and they all melt.
Yeah.
Yeah. That happened to one of my friends at work too.
Yeah.
So backing up a second, do you remember what it was like? I'm not sure what the procedure was back then. They like rolled him out to you or whatever, but the first time you saw him after you gave birth, what that was like?
Well, of course I
Both
saw
of
him immediately at birth.
Mhm. And what was that like?
Was that like?
What was that like?
It was a huge thrill, but it was a little scary because I didn't know how big he was or whether or not he was going to need to be in an incubator or what.
Mhm.
But it was a huge, huge, huge thrill, and he was beautiful, just the prettiest pink baby you've ever seen.
Mhm.
Of course, he didn't need an incubator, but Grandpa has a better story about what happened when they rolled, or when he thought they were rolling him out, because of course they didn't let fathers into the delivery room.
Okay, so you're sitting outside just like I was.
In the father's room.
Yeah. Out in the father's room or the hallway, someplace anyway.
Mhm.
And what happened?
But I didn't have to wait very long. I don't know. I forgot what happened.
They wheeled this baby in a little baby isolette or whatever they called it passed him, and the nurse said, I don't know how he's going to be. He's early. And she went real fast, and Grandpa was just really, really scared. And then he found out that it wasn't Steve at all. It was some other mother that had delivered an early baby.
I could hold your dad in my palm of my hand, and just think of what a Costco chicken looks like.
Mhm.
You know, all done up. That's about what it was like.
Wow.
I had a friend who said, I buy chickens bigger than him.
Oh my gosh. So, but then he grew.
Did you say I was in an incubator or not?
No, you
No, you
never
weren't.
were in an incubator.
Seems to me I remember that I was, but
Oh,
maybe that was a pneumonia tent that you were talking
Yeah,
about.
you were in a tent
yeah.
for your pneumonia.
Okay, so yeah, we can fast forward now back to we made it to the broiler. So Dad's hanging out and you're having more kids.
Well, not yet. We
No.
eventually did, but with Steve, we only had Steve at the time.
The whole year.
Yeah, and he was a sweet baby for sure. I mean, he was just perfect in our eyes.
Mhm.
As a matter of fact, and when he got older, even around 4 years old, I'd written to my parents saying, he is so nice. We will not have a problem with him. He knows how to get along with everybody.
And then we moved to Saline. And brought Therese and Steve with us. And there were kids all over the place. These were kind of beginners' homes. And so we were all beginners with a bunch of kids. And Steve had 3 special friends that were about his age. The nicest and best one of all was Brian Tripp. Would you not say, Steve?
He was really good. Yep.
And the next one was Blake Johnson, who lived right across the street, that you spent a lot of time with.
And
Who was a little bit rougher, but then the final one was Mike, who was in the same grade, Mike McKenzie, and he was a rough kid, and Grandpa said, "Here, I'm going to teach you how to fight."
Because he was your friend, but you'd also fight.
Because Mike was just always just socking him and
Yeah.
just.
I turned that really nice kid into a fighter.
he did too. I bloodied Mike.
And these all 4 of these boys were in, I think all 4 of them, maybe only 3 of you, when we went to they went to Marble School, and they.
Jensen.
Oh, Jensen, sorry. They had, they all went to speech. Was it called speech therapy?
Yep.
Because they lisped.
All of them? All of them?
One of them couldn't say their R's.
Okay.
Oh,
So it was Mike, I think, couldn't say his R's, maybe.
Oh, so Jackie Johnson said, I'm getting him out of here. He doesn't sound any different from his dad. I didn't tell her what his dad sounded like, but I kind of felt that they were just overworking the whole thing with Steve, and I pulled Steve out too. So that was kind of the end of his speech therapy. And Steve
What was
was
this before you had a lisp, right, Dad? Or you couldn't say your S's?
Frontal lisp, yeah.
Okay.
yeah, and it went away.
It went away in 5th grade.
We liked it. And the other thing
Fun
about
for everyone but Dad.
the other thing about Steve was he couldn't make up decide whether to use his right hand or his left hand, his right hand or his left hand or right hand. And we finally just forbid him to use his left hand. I don't think parents are supposed to do that either.
No, especially because he's left-handed.
That could be a problem, couldn't it?
Depending on how much forbidden I got.
So you remember all this, Dad?
No.
I don't know how much of this you will recall, Steve, but Steve grew up during the 1960s, which was a horrible decade.
Mhm.
It was Vietnam all the time.
Was that high school?
No, that's during the 60s.
Oh,
And high school.
Well, yeah, part of high school, and that's when I really got nervous and thinking
Mhm.
about Canada. But during the 60s, they had the civil rights movement really going full-fledged. They had two big assassinations, one of JFK and the other Martin Luther.
and they had riots
And
on
Bobby.
Bell
And Bobby.
Island.
Bobby Kennedy.
Riots going, and the reason I mention this that we watch a lot of news, and of course we had our small TV on at the time, and all the newsreels or whatever they had at the time were in our living room. And it seems to me that anybody growing up during this period would be influenced one way or the other by what had happened.
Mhm.
And that I don't know how Steve reacted. Except one time, I'll tell the story. We were watching the Quezon take the body of JFK, President JFK, to the cemetery.
Yep.
And the commentators were saying that the caisson held the casket, and the casket held the body of President Kennedy.
Yep.
And everything they said, it was President Kennedy's body. And what did you say, Steve?
I don't recall.
Oh, you don't remember?
Oh, you say, well, where's his head? You remember that? Yeah, so I know you saw a lot of what was going on there.
Yeah, well, I understood. They had his body, but you know what? They shot him in the head, so his head might not have been there.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Of it
You're
anyway.
right. Right, but the area where the kids were growing up in East Lansing, which was where we moved. Were you in the 4th or 5th grade?
I was in 5th grade when we moved there. Start
So
of 5th,
1970-ish?
1969,
69.
September.
All of our backyards were adjacent, and it was just like a big park in the backyard, and there were just kids all over the place, just like there were kids all over the place in Saline, except the kids mainly in East Lansing tended more to be girls. And so Steve had a very nice friend by the name of Dave Hammond. Would you say he was maybe your best friend?
Yes, Dave Hammond. Yep.
Mhm. And I think when you became an altar boy, it was not due to Dave, it was more due to Joe, your godfather, Matt, I think. What do you think?
John Eddy.
I'm sorry, John. I meant
Yep.
to say John, not Joe.
Yep.
Your godfather.
Yep.
And an altar boy.
Well, no,
all the time.
I was an older boy long before that, but then the bishop wanted older boys to help him out, so it was John and I.
Oh.
So I guess before we get
close to going to the seminary as I had ever witnessed anybody being. I thought the bishop was recruiting you and John for the seminary.
Well, he was pretty close.
So why did you end up moving from Saline to East Lansing?
That was in 1969.
Yeah, why did you move there?
Why did we move?
Mhm.
Oh, we did a strange thing for most people. I went back to school to the University of Michigan in 1968, and that was a full year program in public health and medical care administration.
Could I interrupt for a minute? While
Go.
we were in Saline, while we were in, I think the reason we moved to, are we talking about why we moved to East Lansing?
Yes.
Or-
Yes.
Okay, Grandpa got his master's degree in social work, and
No,
Public health.
public health, yes. Master's degree in public health from the U of M. And after that, I was offered the job of assistant professor and associate director of regional medical programs at Michigan State.
Ah, okay.
up till then you had been a social worker.
Up to that point, I was a social worker at St. Joseph Mercy Hospital in Ann Arbor, where I founded the medical social work department.
So when we moved to the East Lansing area, we had not only Steve and Therese, less than a year apart, but then 3 years later we had Mark, and 2 years later we had Paul, and we had them when we moved. Okay, and we moved in a Volkswagen, and we were so packed tight full. I mean, that's all we owned. that we
No,
took-
no, you had a Chevy station wagon too.
No, Grandma's
regular.
got to consider this. We moved from East Lansing to Ann Arbor
Yeah.
in a Volkswagen.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
But we had a U-Haul truck, and Ron McGinnis worked with me, getting all of our furniture and whatnot into East Lansing.
Lansing?
and we-
Yeah, because you were in a trailer going to Saline, but then from Saline you had a house full of stuff.
Was Volkswagen, and I had some of the kids in the car with me, and we had
A red one.
the laundry basket tied to the front end over the radiator. No, I don't know if there's a radiator in a Volkswagen, but over the front end
I've seen a lot of head shaking.
of it, over the front of the Volkswagen. So I was there driving, and I had a couple of the kids. I think I had a parakeet too, and the laundry basket tied to the front end.
Mhm. So, Dad, what do you remember about living in Saline?
Well, yeah, because I don't remember anything about East Lansing because, I was before I turned 3. But I do remember, like, one of my earliest memories was Mom watching maybe the Trip kids and sending Brian off to maybe kindergarten or something. Maybe I was 3, maybe I was 4, maybe it was first grade. I don't know when Brian went off. And we had a great sledding hill. It was kind of a time of awareness where you all of a sudden you remember you've got these great things. And I remember Dad was always a great woodworker, and Mom was a great sewer, and Mom would win prizes at the fair for her crochet or perhaps maybe growing vegetables. I don't remember from I just remember going to the fair and Mom and Dad, well, Mom mostly picking up ribbons, but Dad made a huge play box, and he made a deacon bench that's still in the house at their house. What else did Dad make?
Like the bench that's on the dining room table, or one of the tables?
No,
The rank.
Well,
No,
the play box doesn't exist, but there's a deacon bench where
the library table was reduced from quite high down to.
Oh, I remember that one too. That was in your living room. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
That was Gom's table that you shrunk down.
Yeah,
And the ranch.
but
The-
we did okay on the Pinewood Derby, though, stuff.
Yeah, Dad always got me second, but he couldn't beat Toby Proctor. Toby Proctor and I are still friends today on Facebook, but but I remember that we had this little tiny green cased plastic black and white TV that was the family TV. That was it. It was maybe maybe as big as my laptop I'm looking at. It wasn't very big, but it lasted forever and it just wouldn't die. I remember it in East Lansing finally, but then Dad bought a bigger black and white TV in, I think, Saline perhaps, and the little green TV went to the basement where the kids had to survive. And then Dad also refinished the basement with his woodwork. He had a friend named Ken Smith that they used to get together and do a lot of sawing with. I remember that. And I ended up in the basement where monsters would eat me and stuff. But Mark and Paul had a bedroom and Teresa had a bedroom upstairs. But they always put me down with the monsters. And then talked a little bit of Sledding Hill. We used to have a great creek out back that they ended up building houses over. It was like in Farmer Brown's field. And Mike and Brian and sometimes Blake's older brother, Blake and Scott and Mike and Ann Denhoff too. And we had one girl. And we'd all hang out together and try and catch frogs and stuff. And no matter how many birthday parties I had, Ann Denhoff would always show up with like a little tiny cereal box toy that she would give me, like she was a special invited guest and she bought me a present. So I always had to deal with Ann. I'm sure she was a cute girl and probably turned into a beautiful woman, but there was Ann and she was just a girl. And, you know, it was hard enough trying to keep Teresa away from us because she was always there too. And Mike had a sister named Sally and Brian had Susie and Robin and Becky. So it was like a really tight community and we lived at the bottom of a kind of a hill that came down. I remember one kid crashing really bad on his bike that Mom ran out and helped fix. And yeah, like Dad talking about President Kennedy dying. And I remember the caisson, which to me was just really like a casket on an old carriage with horses pulling them with people walking along.
That's it.
And then in like, I think it was 67 or something, 68, the Tigers won the World Series. I was so happy. But at about the same time, we landed on the moon and we watched it. We watched the World Series in school, and we also watched them land on the moon several times. And then there was, of course, Apollo 13, which was kind of a doom mission, but the guys lived through it. And then it was 1969, and there was talk of moving because I remember Gom, my great grandmother. We all the kids. We were brought up with Grandma and Grandpa Lyon and Grandma and Grandpa Kinderman. We got to see them a lot. And we used to travel to Florida. It used to take us, I think, 3 days to get to Florida. It just took forever because they didn't have the interstates all the way built. It was a lot of 2-lane, maybe 4-lane. I remember mostly 2-lane. It was like we were driving through cities the whole way down. And I remember one year, I don't remember what year that Volkswagen camper bus came into our lives, but we all packed up, the 4 kids in this little thing, and we headed to Florida, Tampa area. And Mom made a pot of spaghetti, and we ate spaghetti for lunch and dinner and lunch and dinner and lunch and dinner. And we finally made it there. But it was the biggest.
We didn't change clothes.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, we didn't change food. I kind of got over eating spaghetti after a while there, but yeah, it was interesting times.
Some pretty neat places though along the way.
Yep, there were some times in Florida. Yeah, I remember as a kid too. Yeah, down in down. Yeah, I'm just gonna try and focus maybe in before high school or something. But yeah, I do remember. Let's see, Saline. I just loved Saline. It was the most wonderful place. It was woods and everything else, and so you could play hide and seek and just hide behind trees and hide in the weeds, and no one could find you.
And we had a schoolyard behind us.
Yeah, the schoolyard was behind us with the sledding hill.
And you saw cows up there.
Teresa saw the cows more than I did, but they always escaped from Farmer Brown's field. And we had a tree we called my favorite tree, and that's the kids. We would all climb this big, huge favorite tree out there, where I do recall getting poison ivy, and little boys like to go to the bathroom out in the woods. So I got poison ivy down there. I must have touched my face too and got it all over the place. And I remember mom bringing me Dr. Garrison's, and I'm saying, I don't want to go in, Mom. I don't want to go in. She goes, you'll be okay. You'll be okay. And when we showed up to Dr. Garrison's, she goes, do you think you'd rather sit in the car? And I go like, no, I'll be fine, Mom. So I'm not sure what she was thinking. Like, you know, she had beat me to death because I was all swollen up and good.
And
But we had,
I didn't know how he'd gotten it or where. All I knew was he had it on his face.
and my
So he
penis.
went in to see the doctor by himself. And the doctor came out and got me, and he says, he went to the bathroom in the woods.
Yeah.
He's got the poison ivy in other places too.
But I remember telling Dad, Grandpa at the time, Dad, I think I look like you. And I pulled out myself out in the bathroom, and I was big and swollen. That moment may have lost just a fraction of time. Go see your mother.
Is your poison ivy story the same as the nettles story?
No, the nettles is different. No, that was a houseboating time.
Another part of the.
But we used to get in the nettles all the time as kids too, in Celine. But yeah, there was the one time on the houseboat trip that I found a nice patch of weeds to go to the bathroom in, and the burning nettles was a nice leaf to use to clean my backside, let's say. And I set myself on fire because they're called burning needles for a reason, burning nettles for a reason. And even today, Lisa will go, I've got some burnt or nettle tea. And I'm like, I'm not drinking nettle tea. I'm not touching nettles.
The first houseboat that we camped in down in Kentucky, Steve, I don't remember how old you were, but it stunk so bad that in order to go to the bathroom, the guys would hang their head out the window.
Yeah, it was kind of a stinky houseboat. Yeah.
It was terrible.
But I do remember 1969 we moved to East Lansing, and that was like the height of the Vietnam protests, and there was also some women libs things going on, and the women would take their bras off and burn them, and the students would be smoking dope, and the police would be hitting us up with tear gas. Not me per se, but we'd go down because, you know, we're kids. We'd go down, ride our bikes, and watch the stuff going on. And there was a time or two I'd come home smelling like weed and what did I just say? The other gas, tear gas. Yeah. And Mom and Dad, where were you? I said, nowhere. And we had some kind of really cool gravel pits out toward Park Lake Road. And me and my buddies, we'd go out there, and there was these big swimming holes that we wouldn't swim in, but we'd ride our bikes through it and everything. And then one time, Mom and Dad, of course, this is big hippie time. Mom and Dad were like, well, we want to go see this place that you guys ride your bikes through and make sure you're all safe. And so I think Dad and Mom brought all the kids and I out there to show them what a nice, great, safe place this was. And there was all these hippies just naked as jaybirds, just swimming in the holes and everything. And I think that was the last time I got to go back to the gravel pits.
You guys remember that?
Was laughing and laughing and laughing. And Dad said, Therese, stop it. Let's get out of here fast.
But it was actually the very first time I'd ever seen naked people at the gravel pits. Otherwise, it was just us, you know, riding our bikes through the trails and things out there. But yeah, that was quite emotional for me because that was the last time I got to go out there. And it was like, wait, I never would have told Mom and Dad about this place if there was naked people around. But East Lansing was a little bit more different because there wasn't these fields and these forests around. So we had to learn how to play. Well, we always liked to play kick the can and hide and seek. And playing hide and seek was always funny because, you know, I didn't know where to hide. You had to learn to hide behind trash cans and people's houses and things. And one time my brother Mark saw a little girl run into I think it was our garage. Yeah, it was our garage. It was Susan. I can't think of her last name. But Mark goes and grabs that garage door down and pulls it down so hard on her. And I'm like, what did you do? He goes, someone ran into our garage. I'm like, we're playing hide and seek. So I lifted it up, and poor Susan comes running out of there because she was scared to dickens, you know. She didn't know what was going on.
So Grandma and Grandpa, obviously, you couldn't have well, I guess it was kind of trending that way, but a lot of crazy stuff happening in the late 60s, early 70s. So what was that like, raising kids in that environment, especially so close to a university?
Well, if we knew all of what went on, we would have been crazy, but we didn't know any more than half of what went on, I
Mhm.
think.
Yeah, that's for sure. You know, one thing we didn't cover, Matt, is that when Steve was a month old or so, we that was the summer between my first year of graduate school and the second year. And his grandma, no, his mother took a job as camp nurse
That was me.
up
Mhm.
in Petoskey, Michigan. And I took the job there as a truck driver and to go get supplies for these kids. It was a Jewish camp, and it was quite an experience that we had that summer. But he was raised in the camp. He went camping early in his life. Uh, your question in
Camp Petasiga was in Petoskey, Michigan, by the way.
Yeah, and tell us a little bit more about that truck, Dad.
well, they gave me an old truck.
Model T.
It was a 1940s model sometime, you know, and every time I go into town, which is about 15 miles, it would heat up and
I'm dry.
run dry and smoke and spit, and I had to always go fetch water, you know, to to put into the radiator. And after about the fifth time, I decided they didn't care, and I didn't care either, and that was the last time the truck made the trip because it didn't have any water to drink on that
From then
particular.
on, he had a station wagon,
Yeah.
the Camp Petasiga station wagon to
They
drive.
gave me a good vehicle by that time. But I don't
Dad
know.
was young and not much of a mechanic. Otherwise, he would have brought water with him every time he left.
Well, if they'd only given me a jug, I might have. So, what was it like rearing our children in and around Ann Arbor
East Lansing, right?
and
Well,
East
no, in the
Lansing?
60s was Saline, Ann Arbor. So that was the time of great unrest and civil unrest. And we had, like you said, we had President Kennedy was shot and killed. Martin Luther King was shot and killed. And we had Bobby Kennedy shot and killed.
That's right. And there was the Bay of Pigs invasion in Cuba.
There was that as well.
And a friend of ours, the Gallows, who are the
Godfather.
grandparents, Paul, godparents, he was digging a bomb shelter in Ann Arbor.
Mhm.
You know, during that time, it was
The Cuban
a
Missile,
great
the
period.
Cuban Missile Crisis. Yeah.
Yeah. But
Yes.
Matt, we rolled along, you know, took what came, and finances were tight, and Grandma she could make any food last forever. It seemed like.
Grandpa he always rationed us kids 3 squares of toilet paper a day and said, that's all you get.
Well, I don't think so.
He
Give me
did.
4. Give me 4.
The kids always cheated, but he said 3.
I don't know how you ever hung that on me, but it's been a long time.
They used to feed us lima beans too, and I said I'd never do that to my kids.
I've watched him. He can do 3 squares of toilet paper. I don't know how, but he does.
You know what they do? What the kids did? We had a trestle table. We have it still, you know, in this house. And if they didn't like food, they somehow found a way to stash it under the table, between the legs and whatnot. So even after we moved, after they were out of the house, there was still food packed away in that.
There was a time where I think it was a lima bean day, and I had to go to the bathroom with a mouthful of lima beans, and I went and spit, and I flushed the lima beans down the toilet, and then I came back, and I wasn't paying attention, but Mark went to the bathroom, and after a bit, I think Dad must have had his mouth full of lima beans too, because he went into that toilet and he saw that someone hadn't flushed their lima beans down, and he came out and he was a little angry that we didn't eat our food and we spit it in the toilet. And he sat there and questioned all of us on who spit their lima beans out. And I was just about ready to volunteer and confess when Mark said, I did it. And I was like, whoa, I thought I flushed. So Mark took some heat for that, for not learning how to flush.
When Steve was a little bit younger, I used to give them fruit cocktail like you buy in a can
Mhm.
with little pieces of pears and peaches and cherries and grapes in it. And he would sit there and he'd say, I just want balls. I just want balls. Do you remember that, Steve?
I remember your story, but the other fruit was cut up in squares. So there was balls
Too.
and like cherries and grapes and pears and I don't know, apple, but the pears and apple were squares, but something else tasted better, maybe the grapes.
The
one,
grapes and
the
the
balls,
cherries.
yeah.
That's all you want. I just want balls.
Yeah, yeah.
So when you were,
I got to tell you one other
Yeah.
thing that the Johnsons across the street, they were hunters. I think they were hunters, but anyway, he came home one time with a big deer liver, and Grandma ground that all up in one of those manual
Meat grinders.
meat grinders, and told all us kids that we were eating hamburgers. And you could hardly put enough ketchup on that hamburger to make it taste like a hamburger, but we made do. And then there was another time Jerry went to, I think it was Point Pelee in Canada, and came back with trash cans full of smelt. And we sat there in front of the kitchen sink, Teresa and I believe, and we squished all the eggs out of the fish. And I think I don't know what Mom did, but she cut the heads off. I think we kept the tails because they were a little crunchier. But we ate a lot of smelt for a long time. And even to this day, I'll order smelt and I'll get it. And I say, yep, I remember not liking this too.
Well, it wasn't just eggs that you squeezed out. It was fish.
What was it?
Well,
Oh, would you slice them and then we just clean them? Was that what we were doing?
no, you just squeezed them, but there was
Oh.
some brown came out too.
Oh yeah, yeah. Bleh.
As a side question, this East Lansing house you were living in, this isn't the same one that I remember.
Yes.
Oh, that was the same one?
One.
Oh, cool. Okay. So now I actually know exactly what you're talking about then.
Mhm.
So yeah, so you obviously lived there until all your kids were moved out then, right? Yeah.
Yes,
So
but then Mark came back and lived with us for a while.
so what do you remember about my dad and his friends, I guess, from living there and him going up through high school? Like, would they come over and spend the night? Like, what was he up to?
Well, Steve had a raft of good friends, and especially through high school, and these
They were swimming.
and they were swimmers, the swim team, and Steve was the co-captain, right? You and John, or
Rob Ward, my senior
Rob
year.
Ward,
Mhm.
yeah. But yeah, there was always somebody coming and going all the time, and Steve kind of told to Mark, and he had a bedroom down in the basement in East Lansing, and it was a basement. It had these transom windows that nobody could possibly crawl through. I mean, you didn't worry about anybody breaking in; they couldn't do that. But we found out after
When we moved.
when we moved that that's exactly what your dad did. He somehow got through that transom, went out for the night. They would always show up in the morning.
We figured it out because the window was still not closed correctly. It was still leaking air.
So where were you going? Just the parties or wherever?
Probably to parties, but I don't think I actually got caught. I wasn't that dumb. It was probably Therese or Mark who put the window backwards.
Oh.
They-
Oh,
Are you squealing on them?
No, I just know that I would never do that because I never got caught doing it because I'd always come in the front door when I came home and then just put the window in right. I'd just come in and say, I'm home. Go, okay, he's home. But you never knew I really left. All you want to know is no one was sneaking in on you. So when I say, hey, I'm home, you'd be okay.
I was so tired, I never knew whether it was night or day, if you want to know the truth.
Yeah, but I only escaped a few times.
But you get a feel for how popular your dad was and still is with the number of contacts he builds on Facebook and wherever else. He has a following.
Mhm. So was the swim team was your main crew? Was all your friends basically on it, Dad?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I had like Scott McGriff and John that weren't swimmers and other social circles, but my tight crew is the swimmers. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And because I can't remember when we joined the university club, Dad, but that's when I started swimming. I didn't really know how to swim until we moved to East Lansing.
That's
we went
right.
to
What,
we went
Dad joined right after we moved.
yeah, so maybe 72.
71.
71, yeah, yeah. So they had a swim team opportunity, but before that, Dad had bet all us kids that he would pay us $25 if we could swim 25 laps without stopping. So
Yeah.
I don't even know if Dad could do it, but we all did it.
Okay.
Sure did. You're all very good.
Yeah, we all did it, and then we all joined the swim team, and even the unicycle. I had a unicycle. They bought me a one that they're like, yeah, he'll never learn to do that.
was
And
so
then they said,
crummy,
if
it
you
was
learn to
a-
ride that one, we'll buy you a better one. And
It was a
uh,
Sears,
yeah, it was with a flat tricycle tire on it.
exactly.
And so I did learn to ride that. I'm not sure very well, but I did learn to ride it. And
I don't
Treese
know
learned
how
to
you
ride
did.
a unicycle. Then Mark learned to ride the unicycle. Then Paul learned to ride the unicycle. And then they bought a giraffe, and we learned how to ride the giraffe, which was, about a 5 or 6 foot tall
6
unicycle.
foot.
I used to have to climb the ladder to get on it because I didn't know how to get on it any other way.
What? Why did you get a unicycle? By the way,
I bought it.
Yeah, why?
I got it wasn't it a Christmas present?
It was. I wanted a unicycle for a Christmas present.
Okay, you wanted it. All right.
Yeah, yeah.
You just thought it was cool.
Yeah. Well, if you're going to join the circus, you got to learn a skill.
So what else do you remember about my dad during high school? Anything that pops to mind?
I wasn't a very good student.
Dominated the time pretty much. We spent an awful lot of time in auditoriums, and they were real sweat boxes, and I was always had my suit on from work, and I just remember we getting saturated all the time, and but we were extremely proud of him on what he could do in the pool,
Mhm.
and he was always clean. never had to worry about him cleaning up. He's always clean. Got off early in the morning, and the events were at night, weren't they?
Yeah.
Primarily. So, what else do you remember? Anything?
I remember, let me think of what her name is. Your English instructor with the deep voice, Mary Rhodes.
Mary Rhodes.
Tell us about Mary Rhodes.
I didn't think much of her. I didn't care much for English. I mean, I was a poor speller. I could write the assignment, then I wouldn't hand it in because all I was going to do is get a D on it. So I might as well take the F. So I didn't care to write. I think during my speech class they must have been teaching me the spelling and stuff, but it's never been anything that comes easy to me even today. And I'll have friends ask me, how do you spell this? I said several different ways. I said, if you write it, I can read it. And I never had a problem with reading. I could read through anything. And I know that grandpa or your grandpa used to say, well, how is it you can read so well and you can't spell? And I said, you don't have to know how to spell to read. So
So, what do they call it? Parent-teacher conference? I recall, we were having a parent-teacher conference one time, and I was so tired, and they were droning on, and I finally just put my head down on the table. And they thought, what is the matter with her? No wonder he's having trouble with English.
When it comes to spelling, I could really understand what your dad was going through in the way of spelling, because I worked as the associate dean to the dean of the medical school, and he could not work a simple crossword puzzle because he could not spell anything.
Mhm. Nope.
Is that your sign? Well, I just want to say that Steve, uh, I think went to LCC for a bit of a time after graduation from high school, but he had a little extra chemistry that he had to do that summer in order to go to LCC. And
So wait,
and
I've
then
got
he went into the Air Force.
I got one more question before we leave high school. And I don't know. Do you know where he just went? He just
Where
did
Steve
this.
went? No,
Okay. All right.
the
Well,
question is for him. We'll answer it for him.
yeah. Do you remember his I guess his first like real girlfriend in high school? Did he bring his serious girlfriend home or anything like that?
Yeah, he always had what I called Barbie doll girlfriends. Did you have Barbie doll girlfriends?
sorry, I lost it. Lisa wanted me to unplug it so she could hear, but she couldn't. It just froze me right out of it. So what about my Barbie girlfriends? I'm glad that Lisa couldn't hear that, by the way. What?
Matt wanted to know your first real girlfriend, and I said you always had Barbie doll girlfriends.
I sure did. Yep, I did. They were all beautiful blue-eyed blondes or green-eyed blondes. Yeah.
Or green-haired blondes from
Green,
Swingers.
green-haired blondes too. Yeah.
Who was the first one?
Which blonde? Um.
I know.
Whew, I don't.
How about the Spanish surgeon's daughter?
Well, that was one of the last ones. That was the first one was probably Christina Garrison in first through fifth grade, along with Sylvia Christensen from second to fourth grade. Of course, there was Trudy Sally in fourth grade, and then there was, let's see, Michelle Michaels in sixth grade, seventh, eighth grade, something like that. Then there was the Le Chablette. There was that other girl. She was Jewish, something Greenberg. And then there was, of course, Tracy Young.
Tracy Young.
Yeah.
Jung.
Jung, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Beth Christensen, that was her name. Even though she was Jewish, yeah. She was Jewish. Christensen was her last name. And when we babysat for little sisters, they'd always say the Our Father, and I'd say, "What's up with that?" And she goes, "Well, my grandmother's a Christian." And I said, "Oh, okay." Yeah. So your mother was the first dark-haired woman I dated.
So
He had a whole lot of them apparently.
And I'm glad he did, because you've got beautiful hair, Matt.
yeah, it's nice and dark. Not
Oh,
blonde.
it's gorgeous.
So he
What
goes
do you
to
call that
LCC.
haircut, Matt?
What's that?
What do you call that type of haircut?
Oh, I know the name. It escapes me right now. It's I'll look it up in a second. There's a name for it, not specifically this, but shaving it on the sides and then leaving the top long, and then there's a name for that.
Yeah.
Email it to us when you
Yeah.
think of it.
Came from your day, from back when you were a kid. It was
That was the mohawk. The mohawk was shaved on the side and then straight
Yeah.
up in the
Yeah.
middle, like a skunk stripe.
So he graduates high school. How are you feeling about Dad at this point?
Well, certainly wondering what his ambitions were and where he was going to go to college. Of course, he got the scholarship offer from Lansing Junior College to swim.
And it wasn't a scholarship, but it was Mount Pleasant, Central Michigan, wanted him
We
to
had
because
Central Michigan offer too, didn't you, Steve?
Eastern and Central gave me half scholarships
Yeah,
to swim.
to swim.
Yep.
And how did you decide to go to LCC?
Well, I wasn't too much interested in going to college, but I was interested in swimming. And well, I knew mom and dad had 3 other kids, and I wasn't gonna know. I knew I wasn't gonna toe the rope on this one. So I picked Lansing Community College. I could stay at home for a bit and
use my car.
yeah, use your car, share it with some other friends that swam too, and get down to the community college there in Lansing. You know where that's at, down by the just north of the Capitol, kind of. And then I had like a 1.6 grade average, and that's when I decided I didn't know what else I was going to do because I lost a swimming scholarship, and so I decided I get seasick, so Navy and Coast Guard are out, and Army and Marines, they sleep in foxholes, and that doesn't sound all that great to me either. And
And
Air
besides,
Force,
you're allergic to bees.
and so I said, well, I'll just go in the Air Force. And so on August 2nd, I signed up, and mom and dad said they're going to Florida. I said, I'll see you in a while.
We did.
So yeah, I got on a plane, which was really kind of my first plane ride. I think Dad got all us kids a plane ride in Lansing one time. We launched out of Lansing Capitol Airport, and we all flew around a couple times and landed.
Circled around Ann Arbor and came back.
Sure, somewhere, but we got to fly. So that was really my first real airplane ride, was going down to San Antonio and going into boot camp.
So how'd you feel about him?
You went into the Air Force.
I did.
So
What?
How'd you feel about him joining the Air Force?
Nervous.
Good time.
But at least Vietnam. What year was that?
Vietnam was over for about 4 years, 3-4 years.
Well, we got out of Vietnam in 1973.
I went in 78.
78. And so Vietnam had been quiet for about 3 years when you went in. So, but something else was brewing then. What was going on then? You had Middle East problems with Iraq and whatnot.
Well, that was a little bit later, like 1980 is, yeah, during the hostage rescue attempt when Iranians overthrew the, what did they call the Shah of Iran, and the Khomeini's came in, and they took the U.S. Embassy and
That was about 79.
Captured our
79
employees in the embassy.
Yeah, and our first try at rescuing them, we failed, and then they sent me in on the second wave to try and do something different, which never materialized. But so
You knew some of those people on the first attempt, didn't you?
I did. A few of them that died, yeah.
Yeah.
Too, yeah. But that's what we signed up for, you know. When you're 18, 19, 20, you're immortal. You're ready to do battle. So not when you're 61, you're like, am I going to survive COVID?
Yeah. Even then, I had to wonder about, the 1960s, and all that went on, were you influenced?
Well, yeah, I mean, it was, a lot of my friends, even my friends' brothers were dying in Vietnam. The Catholic families were really big families, 8, 9 kids. And, they ranged in age 10, 12 years, and I remember the Fullers, the Hartsifts, and one other family, I can't remember, but the 3 of those boys, they all got off the plane, and I think it was within the week they were all dead in Vietnam. Yeah, they were all dead within Vietnam, and they were all, kids of us, my friends' brothers who had just died, and it was It was bad, but every day, you know, Walter Cronkite or Dan Rather, they'd flash up a body count during dinner hour and says, "We've killed this many Vietnamese, and this is how many Vietnam soldiers have died." You know, every day it was a body count on the news.
Yeah, that's right. The Viet Cong were the guerrillas of North Korea, and
North Vietnam, yeah.
and most of the North Vietnam, and they got into the fight because they wanted to overthrow South Korea. They wanted to unite
South
North
Vietnam.
Korea and South Korea, and they wanted to turn the entire country into a communist country.
Dad,
why we
Vietnam. Korea was your time.
Well, when I said Korea, I mean Vietnam. Yeah.
Yep.
We get mixed up with our wars because we are a warring country.
We are.
Yeah.
For a peace-loving country.
Yeah, right.
We can't seem to get out of Iraq or Afghanistan, can we?
Yeah, right.
So, do you remember the first time he brought my mom home?
Oh, yes.
Very well.
What was that like?
What do you remember?
I remember that Star Wars was on. Was it Star Wars or was it the second Star Wars? And we waited through, we stood in line through whole movies to get us in. Well, Steve took Elisa there and they were standing in line, and they were on Grand River.
Mhm.
And Elisa, do you remember what she said to you? She said, "There are cars here all the time." She said, "It was amazing if we saw one car a night at our house."
Yeah, yeah.
I remember when we brought her home, I think it was before I went to Alaska, she came and visited us. And Dad and I were redoing I always call it the big bathroom in East Lansing, and we were hanging wallpaper. And Mom came in and goes, "You guys hung that wallpaper wrong," because Mom was the great sewer and she always matched patterns. And Dad and I didn't have a clue. We were just trying to stick it on the wall. So,
It wasn't my idea to have wallpaper there.
but Dad and I ended up having to pull wallpaper down and make sure it was all totally perfect for Elisa. And boy, Dad and I were very proud of that bathroom to show Elisa.
Well, we were obviously very delighted to meet your mother, Matt.
Mhm.
And we had some rules at our house that probably weren't totally accepted by the younger generation, but we got through it.
Mhm.
Such as separate bedrooms for a while.
Those were the rules.
Yep.
That's why Dad had his little sneaky hole to get outside and into the night and then back in. No.
No, that was over with. No,
Yeah.
that was it. And then we went on when was it? We went on the lake boat, the houseboat, because that was early in your relationship. I don't think you were married then, were you?
I think it was, I recall it was when Matt was 1.
Oh, you were married.
No,
No, did we go before Matt was around?
we went when Matt was 1, huh?
Well, no, I know we went as younger kids, but
Yeah.
the second time we went was when Matt was 1, and we didn't worry too much because Matt wasn't walking at 1.
And I think the third time we went, Alexa was 1.
Yeah, perhaps.
Yeah, because I remember watching the babies.
So I guess let's talk about, do you remember their wedding pretty well? It was out in New York, right?
Yes.
What was that like?
Well, Steve, what was that like?
No clue.
I'll tell you what I remember. I remember that we drove up to the church the night before for the rehearsal, and I said, "This looks like a Grange Hall." Come to find out, it was a converted Grange Hall, but they had their rehearsal, and then your grandma had us all over to your grandma and grandpa's house,
Mhm.
and we had a little sandwiches and things like that, which was very, very nice. And it was our 25th anniversary, and Steve and Elisa gave us a beautiful silver platter, which we still have as an anniversary gift that night. And then we went to bed, and there was the darndest noise. What was that, Steve?
It was probably a party in my room.
It sure was. It was a pillow party.
I
It
thought
was a
we were
rough.
gonna end up in jail.
That was a roughhousing.
We're beating one another up with pillows. So that,
You and your buddies.
Yeah, there's 5 of us or something. McCourt, Jimmy Malinsky, Eric Aldrich, John Addy, and myself.
In Grandma and Grandpa's house?
No, it's some
No.
little
Little
rinky-dinky
motel.
hotel down by the Grange Hall. Well, the church was a Grange Hall, but
so the organ didn't work, and so one cousin played the guitar for your music for the wedding, right?
it was Bobby Diskin and his brother Frank sang. And
It's
there
just
was a
like the
woman. I
sound.
think the organ worked. I don't know. I think we had an organist.
It was just like the sound of music.
Yeah.
And Therese had come with us. I don't know about Mark and Paul, but we didn't have too many Lyon guests there, but Ben and Mary came over from Boston.
Yeah, there was Julie Mawiney, my friend from California that I used to swim with. She came. And then, yeah, Mark and Paul were there. Therese was there. Pete couldn't get away because he was working on his master's or something. And yeah, it was a very small Lyon crew, but it was a huge Malinsky crew.
Mhm.
And then we,
Wedding, Matt. It really was.
yeah, it was the first wedding that Boots and Tuppy were really able to like sponsor there. So he threw a big bash. We went to a nice place for a reception, but that ended early. And then we all went over to your grandma and grandpa Malinsky's house, and they threw another big bash the next day or that evening until it was like nighttime. And they were like, well, aren't you going to take your bride away? And I'm like, well, I hadn't made plans for that, you know? So I took her away. I opened up a bunch of envelopes, so I had some money for a hotel room, and we drove up to New Lebanon, New York, or something like that, and spent the night in one of these little hotel motel things, and nothing really to write home about. But then we came back the next day, and they had another barbecue going on the next day.
And I
So
think we left kind of early. Either I'm not sure we even stayed overnight the night of the wedding, but we left. I remember leaving and driving home quite soon after the wedding. I don't know if it was the next day or that same day. We did stay for the reception though.
well, it would have taken you 10 hours to get home, so probably 4 o'clock to 4 a.m. Maybe you did, just to save the money, because
I can't remember.
Mom and Dad gave me the 2 big brass Stiffle lights. Your mom and I, the big brass Stiffle lights for wedding gifts.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I know those. So I guess we'll kind of wrap it up here. We could keep talking about, how Dad, I guess maybe in generalities. I think we'll probably talk separately about becoming grandparents and like all the grandkids. So we'll kind of skip what it was like having me and my sister or whatever. But you have any thoughts on, this guy you see in front of you here, growing up, how you feel about him?
I have final thoughts about you and your sister when we became grandparents, because we just loved having you come to our house. You came to our house quite often, which I loved, and you had to sleep on the floor, but you did, and I thought that was good for you, and we couldn't love Steve any more than we do, and I don't know if they turned out so good because it wasn't me, because I was just a kid trying to raise kids.
Well, I know being a parent to Matt was all of a sudden it's so shocking to know how much my mom and dad loved me, because at that moment that you were born, Matt, that's when I fully realized how much my mom and dad loved me. And same with your sister, of course. It was like, how can I have this much? How can I possibly have this much more love to give to anybody? And here it all comes pouring out. And then I give it to your sister too. And then now I have 3 grandsons. And I know that you and your sister and Kathleen, when you had your sons, you were like, oh my God, I get it. I know how much my parents love me now, and I know what they would do for me. Anything.
Yep. Yeah, I agree.
So
I remember
I
you
love
telling me
you.
that growing up. Where you're like, I will take a bullet for you. I'm like, Dad, you're a weird guy. I don't know what this means. And then I got it as soon as Patrick got wheeled out. So
What it is. And of course, Steve he's the wit of the family. And he's got a great sense of humor, and he's always coming up with something that makes us really belly laugh.
all of your
Ev-
kids are. Every single one of the Lyon kids is really funny in their own way.
Yeah, Dad always used to call me dim wit. No.
See there, that you just proved it. Oh,
Well, they turned out better than I turned out. I'll have to say that, and I'm proud of them so much.
No, that's not true.
Everybody turned out.
We all do the best we can.
We did.
And the same with you, Matt. The way I learned to be a dad was from my dad, and I know the way you learned to be a dad was from your dad. And we try and do the things that we really thought they did great, and maybe back off some of the things that we didn't really agree with, like lima beans.
It wasn't spam for you, but spam comes up later.
I made them eat spam once, but that was it. They didn't like it.
And our table had 0 nooks and crannies to hide food in, so that was also probably a mistake he corrected.
made sure of that.
We had Rosie. They were shuffling their food under to Rosie probably.
Okay, well, I'm gonna end it unless you guys want to say anything more, but I think this was great.
No, love you, Mom and Dad. Love you, Matt. Thanks for having this chat with us, this fireside chat.
We love you, Steve and Matt. So
We're so proud of both of you, young men, compared to us. We couldn't possibly wish to have anything better than what we have with you two.
Thanks.
I agree. I feel the same way toward my younger generation.
And I feel the same way towards my older generations.
Oh, God bless you.
Bye.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
we're kind of growing a beard here, during this coronavirus COVID-19 crisis that we have going on. But back in the late 60s, I grew my first beard. And that's when there was a lot of protesting going on about the Vietnam War. And for the first time, when I'd walk around Ann Arbor, anybody with a beard spoke to me, they'd wave to me. And before that, nobody ever did.
You're just a man in a suit.
Yeah, man in a suit.
I remember that beard. A little darker.
So Matt, we thank you for doing this for the family, and you're one great guy.
Yep. Aunt Therese is next, so I'll start coordinating that once we're done here.
Are you gonna type these up or have these typed up, or what are you going to do?
These are
This
all
one's
recorded. I'm putting them online once I get most of them done.
Oh, good.
So you can listen and watch them.
I'm glad I didn't say any bad words.
Yeah. All right. I'll talk to you all later.
Bye.
Okay.
Love
We
you.
love you all.
Love you.
Thank you for doing this. Bye-bye.
Love you too. Bye.